God's peace be with you, and welcome to our community Holocaust commemoration service. My name is Chris Thacker, and I serve as pastor here at Emmanuel Baptist Church in Alexandria, Louisiana. And our congregation is so honored to have served as the host of this commemoration service for many years. But as you well know, this is a community effort. And our service tonight is specifically sponsored by the Alexandria Holocaust Memorial Foundation and by Congregation Gimeluth Chassidim, a synagogue whose wonderful congregants are served by Rabbi Raina Soroti, my colleague in ministry, who will lead the lighting of our memorial candles in just a moment. As with just about every other event of these last 2 months, you know that tonight we meet under unusual circumstances. And yet we believe that this is an important occasion, any year. And we should not let a year go by without pausing to remember the deep suffering and the lost lives of God's beloved in the Holocaust. Elie Wiesel once wrote, "For the survivor who chooses to testify, it is clear. His duty is to bear witness for the dead and for the living." And that's what we do tonight. We remember the lives lost. We remember their faithfulness. We remember their dignity. We say that they matter still. And yet we testify to the living, refusing to let future generations forget about the work of justice.
We light 6 candles this evening in remembrance of the 6 million Jews that died during the Shoah. We light this first candle to concentrate our personal memories of family and friends who did not reach the fullness of old age with their families and loved ones because their lives were brutally taken from them. We light this second candle to consecrate the memories of family members we have never met. Aunts, uncles, and cousins, grandparents and great-grandparents with whom we never exchanged hugs or shared a holiday because they perished in the Holocaust. We light this third candle to consecrate the memories of 6 million of our people, most of whom we never knew, but whose kinship we feel keenly when we think of their suffering. We light this fourth candle to consecrate the memories of 1.5 million children, most of whom we never knew, whose lives never blossomed, whose potential was never realized, whose graves are unmarked. We light this fifth candle as a message to the world. We will not allow their memories to fade until violent anti-Semitism and genocide is wiped off the face of the earth forever. And we light this sixth candle as a message to ourselves. It is we who bear the responsibility to remember and to ensure that the world will remember so that there will never be another Holocaust.
Under ordinary circumstances, we would meet as a group at our local Holocaust Memorial Park to begin our service there before processing here to the sanctuary. And since we are unable to do that this year, we previously recorded the portion of our service that would normally take place with the unveiling of a new marker at the Memorial Park. We are grateful to Mayor Jeff Hall, to Alexandria Holocaust Memorial Foundation Chair, Mrs. Kay Miguels, and historian Dr. Thomas Howell for their participation. We share together the presentation from the Memorial Park.
Good afternoon. For those watching who don't already know, I'm Jeff Hall, Mayor of Alexandria, Louisiana. Welcome to the Remembrance Service for the victims of the Holocaust. Though it's being done a little differently this year due to COVID-19, it is important to take a very, very close look this day to remember the 6 million Jews who were killed in the Holocaust during World War II. This week marked the liberation of Auschwitz, other Nazi concentration camps 75 years ago, near the end of that war. For anyone who, especially those young people who may be unfamiliar with these atrocities, I beg you to do some research. Entire families were wiped out by being pushed naked with strangers into a room and then gassed to death. Others who didn't get sent to the gas chambers were tortured, raped, died of starvation, worked to death, and some, including babies and children, were medically experimented on in horrifying ways. Why should we remember these victims? If what that I described isn't enough, then we must remember, because as Winston Churchill did say, those who fail to learn from history are condemned to repeat it. The Anti-Defamation League reported a rise of anti-Semitic attacks, some quite deadly, against Jews in the U.S. in the past few years, also citing the New York Police Department figures who cited more anti-Semitic crimes in 2019 than all the other crimes in the city added together. Dare we forget? I say absolutely not. The cost of forgetting that radicals and madmen would do anything and kill anyone was brought home on our own soil at Pearl Harbor and again in 2001. In the 9/11 tragedy, those radical terrorists targeted and even their own kind. Every religion, creed, color, nationality, citizen and non-citizen alike were targets and died that particular day. These are sobering memories of the Beare attention. Jews and Jewish sympathizers suffered greatly. And think about it. It only took one man to convince a nation that an entire race of people should be exterminated. Few American cities have a closer connection to the effort to defeat Nazi Germany and its Axis allies than Alexandria. General Dwight D. Eisenhower, who would later lead the liberation of the concentration camps, and other great generals stayed here while planning the D-Day invasion. Thousands of our soldiers trained here while to sacrifice themselves, if need be, to stop that reign of terror. We are very proud of our Holocaust Memorial Park, which was mostly paid for by community donation. And we are proud to add an additional historic marker to this site in remembrance of the innocent victims of the Holocaust. Thank you, and may God have mercy on all of us. Thank you.
Good evening. Thank you, Mayor Hall, for that kind and special welcome. I'm Kay Miguels, and I'm president of the Alexandria Holocaust Memorial Board. And I have with me today my fellow board member, Rabbi Raina Cerati. And we are so honored and proud that you've joined us for this special occasion. We are especially proud of our 18-foot granite monument that anchors this beautiful park in downtown Alexandria. Our monument stands strong as a reminder to us all of the evils of hatred and intolerance, a message that is so timely today, given the current attitudes of intolerance and hatred fostered by many, not just around the world, but here in our own country, directed against others simply because of their color, their political beliefs, or their sexual orientation. Let us not turn a blind eye. Let us never forget the atrocities of such hatred. Let us stand strong, just as our monument here in the Holocaust Memorial Park. This year's Holocaust Memorial is special in that we celebrate the 75th anniversary of the liberation of Auschwitz. We recognize and honor the extraordinary efforts of the resistors, the rescuers, and the survivors of the Holocaust who through hope and faith and perseverance won the war against hatred. We also recognize and honor the efforts that followed to hold those responsible for the atrocities accountable. We're proud to remember their contributions in the unveiling of this special addition to the Holocaust Memorial Park. Rabbi? This is our brand new marker honoring those who participated in the trials of Nuremberg. And I am very happy to introduce Professor, historian, and fellow board member, Dr. Thomas Howell. Dr. Howell researched and drafted the text for this special marker and is here to present it to you. Dr. Howell.
Thank you, Kay. I'm honored to be here on this special occasion. As World War II in Europe was winding to its end, in the spring of 1945, the terrible secret of the Holocaust was uncovered. Although the Soviets had already invaded Poland and found the factories of death at Majdanek, Treblinka, and Auschwitz, many people distrusted the widespread rumors and the Russian reports about the Nazis' system of enslavement, starvation, and extermination of the Jews and other minorities. Some argued that the Germans could not possibly be so depraved. But as American and British troops pushed into Germany and occupied territories in April and May of 1945, 75 years ago, they discovered similar atrocities at Bergen-Belsen, Dachau, Ravensbrück, and thousands of other large and small concentration camps. The horror stories were true, all of them, and more. To convince disbelievers and discredit future deniers, General Dwight Eisenhower not only had the evidence recorded on film, but also required the generals under his command to personally tour the camps so that they could testify to what they had seen. Captured German records revealed that the path to the Holocaust began with a Nazi claim of racial superiority. Minorities soon became the target of condemnation and degradation. Then the government began isolating those of Jewish ancestry. Finally, with virtually no public outcry, the Germans eventually sent millions of Jews, as well as Roma or Gypsies, gays, Jehovah's Witnesses, and even mentally challenged Germans to concentration camps to be killed. Seeking justice against those responsible for such inhumane treatment and other cruelties, the four major Allied nations that defeated Germany put a number of high-ranking German officials on trial before an international military tribunal in Nuremberg, Germany. It was composed of 4 judges and 4 prosecutors, one from each of the United States, Great Britain, France, and the Soviet Union. The trials provided a way to present evidence publicly and to allow each of the accused to choose a lawyer and mount a defense if they could. The new plaque, just unveiled here at the Holocaust Memorial in Alexandria, Louisiana, commemorates the first set of court cases primarily, 13 legal proceedings known as the Nuremberg trials, held in November 1945 to April 1949. The very first and most famous proceeding involved the major war criminals. Adolf Hitler and 2 other famous Nazi leaders, Joseph Goebbels and Heinrich Himmler, were not prosecuted because they had committed suicide before the end of the war. Of the 22 defendants in that initial trial, which lasted over 10 months, 3 were acquitted, 7 were imprisoned, and 12 received the death sentence. Hitler's second in command, Hermann Goering, escaped hanging by taking poison the night before his execution. In the 12 subsequent trials, 97 of the 185 accused were found guilty. Dean Paul Hebert of the LSU Law School was a judge in one of those subsequent trials. His role will be discussed, and the plaque itself commemorates the efforts of Dean Hebert. So was there justice at Nuremberg? The trials provoked 2 kinds of controversy. Some argued that winners could not possibly be fair in prosecuting losers. Others contended that the proceedings were inadequate, since only a few perpetrators of the many were tried, and most of the convicted received remarkably lenient sentences. Certainly no legal proceeding could possibly have encompassed the enormity of the crimes committed. But the verdict of history indicates that justice was done. The 13 trials, which made a genuine effort to be impartial, were the first to call war criminals to account. More recent trials of a similar nature regarding events in Rwanda, Yugoslavia, and Iraq were based on the precedent set at Nuremberg that heinous acts cannot be excused because of war. Also, important documents such as the United Nations Genocide Convention and institutions like the current International Court of Justice resulted from the Nuremberg trials. But perhaps the most significant lesson for us at present is that violence and depravity can result when hatred becomes acceptable in any society, no matter how advanced it is. Thank you for the opportunity to speak.
Thank you, Dr. Howell. Paul M. Beare, Dean of the LSU Law Center from 1937 to 1977, served as one of the judges from 1947 to 1948. He heard the case involving the German chemical and pharmaceutical giant IG Farben. One of the largest companies in the world, it had used slave labor from concentration camps. Dean Beare became well known for his strong dissent when the majority voted to acquit 13 of the 23 defendants who had served on Farben's governing board. We encourage you to read Dean Hebert's dissent at the link displayed on your screen.
As you heard Ms. Miguel say, you will find a link to Dean Hebert's dissent at the bottom of your screen. You can also find that same link in the description to this video beneath the picture. It'll take you to the LSU archives where you can read in detail about Dean Hebert's dissent. We are also honored to hear from 2 other guests tonight. Dean Hebert's daughter, Mary Hebert McCowan, and the interim dean of the Paul M. Hebert Law School at LSU, Ms. Leanne Wheelis Lockridge.
I'm Mary Hebert McCowan, the daughter of Paul M. Hebert, the former dean of the LSU Paul M. Hebert Law Center, and a judge at Military Tribunal Case Number 6 at the Nuremberg trials. The Hebert family is honored that my father is included in this occasion and remembered in the plaque that is being unveiled today. My father was a judge in the industrialist trial that sought to hold those responsible for the enslavement and deportation of slave labor to Auschwitz concentration camp and making those poor souls participate in the manufacture of poison gas and other war materials. The majority of the court found that many of the defendants participated in the mistreatment, terrorization, torture, and murder of the enslaved personnel, but acquitted a number of the defendants who were not in high positions. My father agreed with those who were found guilty, but he also dissented and found that all of the defendants who participated in the enslavement and inhuman treatment should have been found guilty. Again, our family is honored by the inclusion in this ceremony and the plaque, and hope and pray that the enslavement of poor souls never happens again.
Hello, I'm Leanne Willis Lockridge, Interim Dean of the Louisiana State University Paul M. Beare Law Center. It's my great privilege to be part of today's event emphasizing the search for justice in the face of a monumental rupture in our common humanity. Paul M. Beare was the Law Center's longest-serving dean. With only a few interruptions, he led the law school from 1937 until his death in 1977. One of those few interruptions came in 1947 when he was asked to serve as a judge for the United States military tribunals in Nuremberg. No one could think that role would be small or without its personal trials and difficulties, and he willingly accepted the appointment. Dean Hebert's work as a tribunal judge lasted through 1948, during which time he most famously participated in the trial of defendant directors and managers of IG Farben, a large conglomerate of chemical firms. The defendants were charged, among other things, with the commission of war crimes and crimes against humanity for participating in the enslavement and forced labor of both civilians and concentration camp inmates, including those at Auschwitz. Dean Hebert is well known for strongly opposing the majority decision to apply the defense of necessity to exonerate some defendants on certain counts. Necessity, by way of the orders of the Nazi government, that is. In dissenting, Dean Hebert emphasized moral responsibility for others. And rather than quote the decision, I will paraphrase its essence. He argued that our personal subjective will for the specific fate of others is not the only thing that matters. It also matters whether we form any part of the link in the chain of their fate. Being a few steps removed is no excuse, he said. We must take care and responsibility to regard, not disregard, basic human rights at all times. Today, Dean Paul M. Beare is known as an ethical leader at the Law Center that bears his name, and through his role in the Nuremberg trials, he is also known as an ethical leader internationally. Our LSU law family is honored that this wonderful memorial in Alexandria includes the noble legacy of our school's namesake, Paul M. Beare. Thank you.
Tonight, we are so fortunate to hear selections from composer Jake Heggie's work, For a Look or a Touch. Tonight, baritone Aaron Rogers and pianist Chow Ling She will be sharing these beautiful musical selections.
For a Look or a Touch by Jake Heggie, libretto by Gene Shear, was premiered in Seattle in 2007. Commissioned by organization Music of Remembrance, dedicated to preserving the remembrance of the Holocaust and its victims through musical performance. The song cycle follows a theatrical work of the same name that is a dramatization of accounts, true stories from survivors of the camps and the war. Specifically, Manfred Lewin and Gad Beck are represented in this, as well as accounts from Jeffrey Epstein's film Paragraph 171 and the play Bent. Manfred Lewin's journal can be found at the United States Holocaust Memorial and Museum in Washington, D.C. on reserve. This is the only work that I know of that speaks to the persecution of homosexuals in the Holocaust. We will remember. A void consumes me, my spirit and body are suddenly lame. Terror fills the time that follows. Will each new day be the same? lonely and abandoned, see myself on the edge of an abyss, and I become dizzy as I look down. With blood-drained cheeks that you'd kiss. Suddenly from the darkest depths, a loving voice echoes and seeks me out. I look down and ask, who is calling? And I hear a voice that ends all doubt. It is the voice of a sanctified power, the sacred place where fears dissolve. The unyielding blessing, the generous heart, the voice of souls in perfect resolve. That was the first movement from the song cycle, The Voice. The second movement is Golden Years. It tells about the good times, the good memories of Berlin in the interwar period, specifically after Kaiser Wilhelm's abdication, before the rise of Hitler in 1933. Wild, free. We are free, topsy-turvy, joyful Berlin. You are free, you are wild, topsy-turvy child of Berlin. Golden years, golden years. Nice. Give me a look or a touch and I'll know, a nod or a wink or a glance. Let's not mean words, just stand very close. Let's not miss out on a chance for love tonight. A look or a touch and I'll know you're the one. A grin or a smile was for too wild tonight or a lifetime. Let's not miss out on a chance for love right now. Dance with me. This is the Schwanenberg, hottest club in Berlin. Meet and greet and eat and cheat and swing. Ba 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 da, ba 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 da, ya da 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 da. Pow, pow, pow! What a band, what a crowd at Schwanenberg. Take my hand, dance all night at Schwanenberg. Let's have a laugh now, let's have some fun. Shout police and watch him pull the skirts up and run. Everybody's running around, screaming, laughing, giddy from the joys of this town and these golden years. Golden years. While we are young, wild and free, let's keep dancing. Let's not miss out on a thing. And if we should find we're of the same mind, a look or a touch could lead to a precious night of love. Police! This last song is entitled 100,000 Stars, and it is the third of the song cycle. It was written entirely by Jake Heggie, and the number 100,000 stars appears throughout the work a lot, and that represents the people that died. They're the stars. The sky has gone black, and we remember them. One by one, one by one by one, 100,000 stars, love, have fallen from the sky. 100,000 dreams gone, 100,000 sighs, 100,000 whispers, promises and lies. The constellations change, our stories rearranged, and darkness fills the sky. 100,000 stars, love, have vanished from the sky. 100,000 candle flames flicker out and die. Our laughter in the night, love, when you would hold me tight, love, like shadows on a wall, nobody will recall. Who will remember how starlight filled the skies, as I will always remember the way it filled your eyes. Every star had a name. Everyone was a light. What is that I hear, love? A train is passing by. Another star has vanished, stolen from the sky. Hush, my love. Hush, my love. Hush, my love. My love. You must not be afraid now. This will not be the end. 100 million stars will be born to fill the sky again. You never are alone, love. I swear I'm by your side. There's very little light. Auf Wiedersehen, adieu. Good night, my love. Good Good night.
We are so grateful to Aaron and to Cha-Ling for bringing this music to life for us tonight as we remember the lives that were lost and as we pledge to never let this kind of injustice happen again. Thank you. O God of Life, a reading adapted by Rabbi David Posner. God of life, our times are in your hands. One generation comes into the world to be blessed with days of peace and safety, and another goes through the valley of the shadow, enduring the cruelties of persecution and war. Sorrowful and dangerous have been the times which you, O God, have assigned to us. We have lived through years of tyranny and destruction and are now schooled in sorrow and well acquainted with grief. We have seen the just defeated, the innocent driven into exile, and the righteous brought to a martyrdom as merciless as any the ages have ever beheld. And at this time of memorial, we recall with reverence all of your children who perished through the cruelty of the Nazi oppressor, not punished for any individual guilt, but without discrimination. The aged and the young, the learned and the simple were driven in multitudes along the road of pain and pitiless death. For no sin of theirs did they perish, but because they were a symbol of your eternal law. They have died, as did the martyrs of bygone days, for the sanctification of your name on earth. They lie at rest in nameless graves. Their resting places in far-off forests and lonely fields that are lost to the eyes of reverent kin. Yet they shall not be forgotten. We take them into our hearts and we give them place beside the cherished memories of our own beloved. They will forever be ours. We pray to God, O merciful God, that your law, to which these your children bore witness in life and in death, shed now a renewed light in the hearts of all your children, that all our martyrs shall not have suffered in vain. May their memory be an enduring blessing to all your children.
El Malerachamim, Shachin Bamramim, Hametzim Nechanechana, Takat Kanfi Hashchina, Bamalot Kedoshim Utoharim, Kezaharakia, Mazirim, Leishmot Yakurenu, Kshoshinu, Shehalchu Leolamam, Anabal Harachamim, Asiter Betzeter Kenafeha Leolamim, Utzro Bitzro HaChaim et Nishmatam, Adonai hu nachalatam, ve'anuchu b'shalom al mishkavam, ve'nomar Amen. We now join together in the mourner's Kaddish. Yitgadal v'yitkadash shemei Rabbah, בעלמא דברה חירותי וימליך מלכותי, בחייכון וביומכון ובחיי דכל בית ישראל, בעגלה ובזמן קריב ואמרו אמן. יהי שמי רבא מבורך לעולם ולעולמי עלמיא. יתברך וישתבח ויתפאר ויתרומם ויתנשא, ויתהדר ויתעלה ויתהלל שמי דקודשה בריחו. לעילה מן כל ברכתה ושירתה, תושבחתה ונחמתה, דאמירן בעלמא ואמרו אמן. יהי שלמה רבה מן שמיה, וחיים עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ואמרו אמן. עושה שלום במרומיו, הוא יעשה שלום, עלינו ועל כל ישראל, ועל כל יושבי תבל, ואמרו אמן.
Our benediction. The Holocaust shook the foundations of modern civilization. Its unprecedented character and horror will always hold universal meaning.
The Holocaust must have a permanent place in our collective memory. We honor the survivors still with us and reaffirm our shared goals of mutual understanding and justice.
We vow that future generations understand the causes of the Holocaust and reflect upon its consequences.
We vow to remember the victims of Nazi persecution, to safeguard their stories, and to stand here as their voice.
We recognize the sacrifices and the risks of the rescuers as a touchstone of the human capacity for good in the face of evil.
We recognize that humanity is still scarred by the belief that race, religion, disability, and sexuality make some people's lives worth less than others.
We share responsibility to fight these evils. We pledge to promote education and research about the Holocaust and other genocides.
We value a free, respectful, and democratic society. We condemn the evils of prejudice, discrimination, and racism. We will do our utmost to make sure that the lessons of such events are fully learned. We thank you so much for joining us tonight in our Holocaust Remembrance Service. Good evening.